And then before we wrap up, we have our NFL Week 12 picks. We're also going to be introducing best bets for this week, which is pretty self-explanatory. We each pick a game we think is the best bet for. And let's start things off with the Thursday night game this week. Bills at the Texans. The Bills 6-point road favorites with an over-under of 43.5 points, Braden.
Yeah, before I jump to that, I think we should do a quick recap of our picks from last week. Straight up, I was 10-5 on the week, 8-7 against the spread. My best pick of the week was the Texans Titans game. I nailed that almost to a T. I had the Texans winning 17-12. The final score was 16-13 Houston. So I even picked the correct number of points in that game. My worst pick of the week was easily Panthers Falcons. I had Atlanta winning that one 24-10, and the Panthers won 30-27 in overtime to shatter my dreams.
Yeah, I'm going to plead the fifth on this one this week. It was not my week last weekend. I think I probably got 5 games correct. So I'll ballpark it at 5-10. It was not a good day, but I've got some redemption to do here in week 12. So with that out of the way, Braden, your Thursday night prediction.
Yeah, I think the Bills probably win this game. Covering is pretty close. Davis Mills has actually looked pretty good stepping in for the injured CJ Stroud. I think on short rest, I like the Texans to cover. The Bills got gashed by Sean Tucker on Sunday. I think Woody Marks will have a great game on Thursday night here. So I'm going to go with the Bills 25-20. Bills are not going to cover. Texans will cover that one, and the over will barely hit.
Yeah, it's going to be Davis Mills again for Houston. Quite frankly, I don't think it matters who starts for Houston in this game. Josh Allen was coming off a 6-touchdown performance in that game against Tampa Bay last week. I play him in a must-win game in fantasy this week, so I pray he does not do that again. I don't think he'll need to. I think the Bills win. I think they cover, and I think the over hits in a 27-17 Buffalo victory. Next up, we have the Vikings at the Packers in a NFC North divisional rivalry. The Packers 6.5-point home favorites with a 41.5-point over under. Who wins this one, Braden?
Yeah, this might be a homer pick, but both teams have been pretty inconsistent this year. The Vikings offense has looked miserable the last couple of weeks. The Packers have just been super inconsistent. They looked terrible offensively against Philly. They almost lost the Giants this past week. Minnesota needs this game if they have any hope of saving their season. Josh Jacobs might not be good to play either. So I'm going to take the Vikings to upset the Packers on the road as 6.5-point dogs. I'm going to say Minnesota wins it 25-24, so the over hits as well.
Well, we got 9 for the Vikings, 9 being J.J. McCarthy, who has looked utterly terrible for 7.5 of the last 8 quarters of football that he has played. The Packers have not looked a whole lot better for the most part. Josh Jacobs may or may not play, and that could make a big difference. In my opinion, probably not. I'm going to take Green Bay to win. I do think the Vikings cover with the 6.5 points, and I will take the under in a relatively ugly Packers win. I will say 21-17 as the final score in that one. Another NFC North team, the Bears, host the Pittsburgh Steelers, who may or may not have Aaron Rodgers in this game. The Bears 2.5-point home favorites with a 45.5-point over-under rate.
I'm not a huge believer in the Bears this year. They're kind of this year's version of that one team you know is going to regress because they're always winning their games by a couple of points, by the skin of their teeth, and they always fall flat in their face in the playoffs. I think the Steelers win this one. I'm going to go 27-20 Pittsburgh. They pull the slight upset as 2.5-point underdogs, and the over hits by a couple of points.
Does that opinion change if Aaron Rodgers does not play?
Yes, but I'm planning on Rodgers playing, and he also owns the Bears.
That is true. Yeah, he's got a fracture in his wrist. But yeah, somehow still has a chance to play. I'm going to take it as he does not, so we've got some different perspectives. Caleb Williams has been playing very well for the most part the last few weeks. His wide receivers have not been catching the ball very well. With how many turnovers the Bears defense has been getting against what I am going to assume will be a backup quarterback at home, I think they get it done. I think they keep rolling and move to 8-3. I will say they win and cover, being that it's a 2.5-point spread. Although I do have them winning by 7. I will say Bears 24, Steelers 17 with the under. Patriots at the Bengals. The Patriots are 8-point road favorites with a 49.5 point over under. Who do you like here, Braden?
I'm gonna go with the Pats outright here, but the Bengals to cover 7.5 points or 8 points, whatever, is too many to lay on the road, especially with how good the Bengals offense has been for most of the year. Yes, there's no Jamar Chase, but the Bengals still have a plethora of other weapons. This game's going to be fun to watch. T. Higgins and Stephon Diggs might combine for 250 receiving yards. I'm going to go with the Patriots winning this one 31-26, so the over will hit by a comfortable margin as well. And that might actually be my best bet of the week.
Yeah, and this could be the game or the last game without Joe Burrow for the Bengals. And it's worth noting too that right before we started recording, he was listed as a full participant at Wednesday's practice, so could even be back for this game. I'm not going to predict that though. You mentioned no Jamar Chase for Cincinnati. I'm not sure the Patriots can be stopped at this point. I mean, they're 9-2. They have the best record in football, coming off of a mini bye after that Thursday night game last week. I will take the Pats to win. I will take Cincy to cover in what I am going to predict will be the highest scoring game of the week. I will take New England 34, and I will take the Bengals 27. The Giants at the Lions. Sounds like Jackson Dart will be back for the Giants. Either way, Lions are 10-point home favorites with a 50.5 point over under. You don't see a 50-point over under very often. Braden, who do you like here?
I think I'm going to take the Giants to cover this one. They seem to be, great at showing up for three quarters and then blowing games late. We've seen that against Denver. We've seen that against the Packers. We've seen that against the Bears. I think Detroit is maybe looking a little bit ahead to Green Bay on Thanksgiving for this game. So I do think they'll win, but I'm going to take the Giants to cover with a final score of 28-24.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions looked like a wet fart last week, to put it nicely. I think they're going to come out fired up against a pretty depleted Giants team. I expect them to score early and often. Bijan was my 20-point plus guarantee last week in fantasy, and he delivered, by the way. Amon-Ra St. Brown is my 20-plus point guarantee this week. I think the Lions win. I think the Lions cover. Although I did say that before I knew Jackson Dart was playing. I'll still take him to cover. I will say Lions 31, Giants 17. And then up next, we have the Seahawks at the Titans. This is just best versus worst. The Seahawks are 13.5 point road favorites. Road favorites. With an over-under of 40.5. Braden, I mean, is there any way the Titans pull this off?
I'm going to say no. Their offense is miserable. Their defense is at least occasionally solid, but Seattle's in a must get right spot. Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts in LA again. I think the Seahawks win this one pretty handily. I'm going to go Seattle 34, Tennessee 13.
Yeah, and 13.5 is a lot for a road favorite, but this is like the equivalent of Ohio State traveling to face your local high school team. I called the Titans to upset Houston last week. They did not. I am absolutely not doing it again this week. I think the Seahawks win and cover that 2-touchdown spread on the road with the under hitting. I will take Seattle 27, Tennessee 6. We have the Colts at the Chiefs, with the Chiefs 3.5 point home favorites with a 49.5 point over under. Braden, who gets this one done?
I think that the Chiefs, they've been struggling for a lot of the year. I think they are going to find a way to pull this one off. They're ninth in the NFL in rushing defense per game. Their last three games, they've allowed just 86.7 yards per game on the ground, which is obviously Indianapolis' strength with Jonathan Taylor. I think Steve Spagnuolo is going to be able to disguise enough coverages to confuse Daniel Jones enough. The Colts are coming off a bye, which should help a little bit. And I think maybe the 3.5 point spread is a little bit iffy there. But I do think the Chiefs cover. I'm going to say Chiefs 23, Colts 17, and the under of 49.5 hits pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the best game of the day until the Sunday night game, and maybe even the best game of the day, period. The Chiefs need a win, like they need air. They were 12-0 in one-score games last year. They are 0-5 in one-score games this year. They also are going to get Indy off of a bye this week. I think this is going to be an extremely close game for 60 minutes. But I think the Chiefs win their first one possession game of the year. I think the Colts cover, and I think the under hits. I will say Chiefs 24, Indy 21. The Jets at the Ravens. We have the Ravens as 13.5 point home favorites with a 44.5 point over under. Braden, who do you got?
This one is going to be ugly. Switching to Tyrod Taylor likely means that the Jets are going to be holding the ball slightly longer before they punt than with Justin Fields at quarterback. It's going to be a rough game for everyone with eyes. Granted, the Ravens didn't look phenomenal against the Browns last week, but they did pull out the win. I'm going to say Baltimore wins and covers here with a final score of 26-10.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to matter who starts for the Jets this week. Baltimore has been on fire ever since Lamar got back, and that's not going to change against one of the worst teams in the league at home. Baltimore wins. I will take the Jets to cover. 13.5 points is a lot, unless you're the Titans. I do think the over hits as well. I will take Ravens 28, and I will take the Jets to get 17. So the over will just hit. Then we have the Browns at the Raiders, the shit stain of the Week 12 slate. The Raiders are 4-point home favorites with a 36.5 point over under. Do not watch this game, but Braden, who do you think will win it?
Yeah, all I have in my notes is, good lord, this game is going to be terrible to watch. So with that analysis in mind, I'm going to say Vegas 16, Cleveland 7. And my best bet of the week is going to be the under at 36.5 in this game. My advice would be, if you bet this game, bet it and then do not watch it.
Yeah, a blind bet, if you will. I think that's the perfect advice. Neither of these offenses look capable of putting together multiple long drives, and this may be one of those games where it just ends like 6-3. So I'll take the Raiders to win and cover with the under comfortably hitting. I will say 10-3 Raiders as my final score. It is not going to be fun to watch, so don't. We have the Jaguars at the Cardinals. The Jaguars 2.5 point road favorites with an over under of 47.5 points. I got the Jaguars Chargers game drastically wrong last week. So I'm looking for some redemption here. Braden, who do you like here?
Yeah, I had the Jags winning as a 2.5 point underdog last week. Now I'm going to have them losing as a 2.5 point favorite this week. The Cardinals actually look pretty competent on the offensive side of the ball. Jacoby Brissett's had a really nice couple of games filling in for the injured Kyler Murray. It's also kind of a letdown spot for Jacksonville. You just beat one of the premier teams in the AFC, and not just beat them, you curb stomp them 35-6. This game is going to be a pendulum swing the other direction. I'm going to take Arizona by a score of 27-23 here, so the over will barely hit.
Well, Kyler, I hope Black Ops 7 is good because Jacoby Brissett is the best quarterback in the state of Arizona right now. Like I said, I called the Chargers to throttle the Jags last week, and it did not happen. Quite the opposite. So I can either double down on my Jag slander or admit that I was wrong. And as much as I want to be stubborn and double down, Arizona won't have Marvin Harrison Jr. again this week, and Brian Thomas Jr. should be back for the Jags. So I will take the Jags to win and cover, and with a 2.5 point spread, I will take this as my best bet of the week. And I will take the over as well in a Jags 28-24 win. The Eagles at the Cowboys in an NFC East divisional battle. Eagles 3.5 point road favorites with a 47.5 point over under. Who do you like here?
This game was pretty good when these teams matched up in week one. They kicked off the season in Philly, and Dak Prescott looked great, but his receivers let him down. George Pickens looks like an absolute monster now, coming off a phenomenal game against Vegas. CeeDee Lamb is obviously still there. So as long as they're not out gambling at the casino until 7:30 a.m. and get benched for the first drive again, I think the Cowboys pull off the upset at home here. I'm going to say Dallas 24, Philly 20.
And yeah, I really wanted to pick the Cowboys, but as much as I want to, I just can't. I think the Eagles' interior defensive line is going to cause a lot of problems in the run game and is going to force Dak to get the ball out faster than he'd like. For fantasy purposes, I think this is a must-start game for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I'm not going to guarantee 20-plus performances for both like I did Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I do expect very good games. out of both. So I will take the Eagles to win. I will take the Eagles to cover with the over just barely hitting. I will go with the Eagles 27, Cowboys 23. We have the Falcons at the Saints. If Raiders Browns is the shit stain of the week, this game is the you have to check your underwear after you fart game of the Week 12 slate. These Saints are 1.5 point home favorites with a 39.5 point over under. Braden, who do you like?
I mean, like you said, it's a miracle this game is not the worst game of the week. I'm not excited to tune into the corpse of Kirk Cousins facing Tyler cannot complete a football pass downfield Shuck. I will take the Falcons to win this one 19-16 in a game that you really should not be watching. I can't believe they put this game and Raiders Browns both at the 4 p.m. slate.
Yeah, it's going to be bad. No Michael Penix for the rest of the season. No Drake London in this game either for the Falcons. So if Bijan can't get going, I mean, this is going to look a lot like their game against Miami a few weeks ago. With the Saints at home coming off a bye, I will take them to knock off a very depleted Falcons team who was coming off of a heartbreaker at home last week. So I will take the Saints 17-13. I'll take them to cover and then the under as well. And then Sunday night, a much better game than that one we just covered. The Bucks at the Rams. Rams are 7 point home favorites with a 49.5 point over under, Braden.
Yeah, Tampa's slipped a little bit lately. They're 1-3 in their last four, but they're still a very good football team. That just feels like too many points to give them a full touchdown. And maybe this is a trap spread. The Rams do look extremely good on both sides of the ball, but I think I'm going to take the Bucks to cover. I think the over hits slightly. I'm going to go Rams 28, Tampa 24.
And that is quite literally my exact score prediction. The Rams may be the best team in football right now. It looked like the Bucks could be that at the start of the season, but they have really been struggling on defense the last few games. I don't think I'd pick anybody to beat the Rams right now, certainly not at home in a primetime game. I will take the Rams to win. I do think the Bucks cover and that 28-24 Rams win. And then Monday night, last game of the week, we have Panthers at 49ers. 49ers 7 point home favorites as well with a 48.5 point over under. Who gets it done here, Braden?
Yeah, the Panthers seem to be getting disrespected on a pretty weekly basis, but I think some of it's warranted because we're not really sure which Bryce Young is going to show up on a week by week basis. Meanwhile, the 49ers looked absolutely elite with Brock Purdy back in the lineup. It's hard to pick against them right now, especially at home. I'm going to go Stanford 24, Carolina 17, with the under hitting fairly comfortably.
And yeah, the Panthers are going to be coming in with some momentum after that overtime win last week in Atlanta. It was the best game of both Bryce Young and Ted McMillan's career, but I think CMC is going to do some unspeakable things to this Panthers defense this week. It is not a good run defense, and I expect San Francisco to have the lead for the majority of this game, if not all. I do think the Panthers offense can put up some points, but not enough. I will take the Niners to win and cover at home